Hey, Noelle the First here, and in this video I wanted to talk about lucid dreaming. So lucid dreaming is the experience of being aware that you're dreaming while you're dreaming. And this is something that I've experienced for most of my life. I've had some incredibly vivid dreams where I recognized that I was dreaming, or I suspected I was dreaming, and so I would test it. Typically by flying or floating through walls or doing something that I know I couldn't do in real life. And then once I was able to float or fly or go through a window, I would realize that I was dreaming, and then I would maybe start to explore my environment. There was one dream in particular where I was in a supermarket and I realized I was dreaming, so I purposely went to the magazine stand and started looking at the articles in magazines, and it was all nonsense. And that's something that I've heard, is that if you pick up a book or you pick up a magazine in a dream, it's kind of just like, it's nonsense. And I found that to be true. So that was sort of amusing. There was another one where I was on a bus supposed to be passing through some weird city, and I remember just staring at the buildings, being fascinated that my brain had like designed all of this random architecture, probably an amalgam of different cities I'd seen, but it was still very detailed and just really, really fun to explore. I remember having a lucid dream where I was staring at myself in a mirror. That's also something I've done a fair amount of in when having these lucid dreams. And it's always weird. There's always something a little bit off about myself. My eye color is a little bit off. My face shape, my features, there's always something a little bit off. And in this particular dream, I was mentally trying to make my boobs larger and not succeeding. Like one would get large and the other would remain the same. And I was like trying to mentally control like growing the size of my breasts. Priorities. I have the ability to dream, and that's, you know, what I'm deciding to do with it. But the part that my friend Becky wanted me to talk about is how I will fly a lot in my dreams, but it's not like a cool, like superhero flying. It's always very weird and very uncool. And I realized that there's sort of a theme that kind of has something to do with retail. I don't know why. I remember in one dream, this was something I had long ago when I was maybe even a teenager. I could fly, but only if I was holding this round 99-cent sign. And then when I did fly, it wasn't like I was flying, like, you know, I was just kind of like leaning back and holding this 99-cent sign. I don't know what that has to do with anything. Another time I was not quite flying, but levitating. But I was levitating in like a chair position, like sitting like in an invisible chair with packages of like shopping bags with crap that I bought underneath me, like they would be under a chair. And I was just kind of like going along. So I don't know what that was about. And it's like, oh yay, I get to fly in my dream, but it's like pretty limited. But I know that there's some people who really try to lucid dream, and there's different tips and techniques out there for how to lucid dream. And I remember one of the tips that I heard about, and I just kind of looked it up to make sure I wasn't imagining it, is this recommendation that if you want to try to lucid dream, you should start to, in real life, constantly ask yourself, is this a dream? Am I dreaming? Is this a dream? And like test it, right? And so even though I've never done that because I just naturally had lucid dreams, I think that I could see why that would work. And I think that maybe my tendency to have lucid dreams might come from the fact that I'm naturally a skeptic. I'm not somebody who believes in things easily. Even as a child, I don't remember actually believing in Santa Claus. So I wonder if that might have something to do with it, is that I'm sort of maybe naturally questioning things. I don't give myself over to a lot of magical thinking, and I don't really anymore believe in supernatural things. I tend to think that there's some sort of scientific explanation behind it. So then when something happens in a dream that I just feel like is a little bit bizarre or a little bit off, or like the timing of something doesn't work out, like, wait a minute, I'm not in college anymore, then I'll say, oh, wait a minute, I think this is a dream. And then I'll do my test of flying or something. Whereas I think if I was somebody who was a little bit more maybe into the idea of magic or magical thinking or supernatural things, then maybe I'd be a little bit more apt to believe that I could actually fly in a dream. And so I wouldn't have that realization that I'm dreaming. Although I say that, and yet there have definitely been a number of dreams where I go, oh my God, I'm not dreaming this time, and I'm actually able to fly. I can actually levitate. And it's this very real feeling of just kind of like willing myself up kind of with my gut and floating, and maybe just for a little bit, just levitating for a little bit, and really believing it. So I've had both dreams. I haven't attached it to, you know, anything in life, any parts where it's like maybe I'm at a place in my life where I'm more believing in the possibilities of things, and so maybe I have less lucid dreams. I haven't necessarily noticed a pattern. I think I read somewhere too that maybe with lucid dreaming, you might have a tendency to experience them maybe as you're slowly sort of coming out of the REM dream state. So not quite sure if that's correct. But I wonder if that has something to do with it, is like how deep I was dreaming at the time. What are some other lucid dreams? Like, I've had weird dreams where I knew I was dreaming and I've tried to talk to God. And this is as someone who I would say I steer pretty far onto the atheist side of things. Like, not so much that I don't believe there isn't a higher power, but like, I don't think of this higher power as being anything nearing descriptions of God as far as, you know, what religions kind of make God out to be, you know. But I was raised Catholic, and so in some of these dreams, I think I'm sort of like trying to like communicate with Jesus or something. And one in particular, I was standing on the roof of my childhood home and kind of being like, show yourself. And then I flew up into the clouds and I ripped through the clouds, and they were like cotton candy. And then finally I ripped through all of them and there was a dropped ceiling. And I just kind of love that dream because I think it's such a great, weird visual. I always feel like some of my dreams look like a Michel Gondry movie, like very almost whimsical and you know, with a sense of humor. I'm not necessarily a big believer in analyzing dreams in terms of like a book that would analyze what your dreams mean. I guess the reason I say that is because I think to a certain extent, a snake or something like that, or mud or whatever, I think that we all have our own personal experiences and opinions and attitudes and feelings around maybe particular things. And so I guess in my mind, it's always going to represent something different for everyone. You know, like my friend who has a phobia against snakes, like to me that might represent something very different versus me who, I say I'm fairly neutral about snakes, although I did play with a friend's snake and I actually found it to be quite cute. And so, you know, so to me, if I have a snake in a dream, it feels like it would mean something totally different than like my friend who has a phobia and hates snakes, you know. But that said, I did recently meet a Jungian analyst. So Jungian, you know, Carl Jung, he was sort of a big believer in like analyzing dreams, and a believer that like, I guess certain themes are very common among just humans, right? You work with enough people, you notice patterns of things, and they seem to represent, I guess, a similar struggle. And so I actually kind of have a standing date to go meet this person for coffee. And I'm curious to talk to her about dreams and, you know, sort of coming from that Jungian perspective. So maybe I'll even do a part 2 if, you know, if she's cool with that after we talk. But I would love to know your thoughts on dreaming, on lucid dreaming. Is it something that you can do? Is it something that you can't, that you've tried to do, or have you had more success at controlling the dreams really well and controlling the narratives? So comment below. I'm really curious. If you have any questions or if there's anything you'd like me to explore more, I'm more than happy to. So If you like this video, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, comment below, and thanks so much.